These are the top 10 cities where home prices are going to drop in 2025. Areas where inventory is absolutely exploding. Sellers are cutting prices and where houses are sitting on the market for a long time. The question is, just how much are values going to drop? Starting with our number 10 city, Dallas. In Dallas, home values are already down about 2% from peak and will likely drop more in the future due to a big surge in inventory, with the number of homes for sale in DFW spiking to over 20,000 in 2025. Such high inventory is now causing sellers across the DFW housing market to slash prices, particularly in northern suburbs like Salina, where new build homes are getting massive price cuts. But the price cuts are even bigger in our number 9 city where prices will drop this year. This is an area in Florida where values are already down over 5% in the last year, and they could drop by even more in 2025. Sarasota, Northport. Sarasota has one of the biggest home value drops in America over the last year at minus 5.3%. However, prices are still way higher than they were prior to the pandemic by about 50%, meaning that there's a lot of potential downside in the Sarasota housing market this year, especially with so many sellers cutting prices. You can see the price cut rate in the Sarasota Metro is 34% entering 2025. That's the highest price cut rate in Sarasota's history going back 7 or 8 years. And a good question to ask is just how much are values going to drop in the cities on this list, because during the pandemic, many of these cities became boom towns. Everyone moved in, bought up all the homes, investors caused the prices to go up, and now all of that is flipping into reverse with a massive surge in supply and a lot of people now leaving these states and cities. There's reverse migration occurring where people are leaving these cities and moving back to where they came from, which is causing even more downward pressure on prices, especially in our number 8 city where values are going to drop in 2025, San Antonio. And the big story that we're seeing in San Antonio is what I call a wall of inventory. There are now 10,500 homes on the San Antonio housing market according to data available on Reventure App. That inventory level is almost triple what it was 3 years ago and is now by far the highest level on record in San Antonio's housing market history. Such high supply levels is now causing builders, resellers, investors, and flippers in San Antonio to freak out because many of them are not able to sell their house. With the median days on market for houses in San Antonio now up to 78 days, meaning that there's just lots of houses when you go on Zillow just sitting there for a really long time with sellers being forced to reduce the price. Now, I think our number 7 city might be the area that could have the biggest overall crash in prices during this cycle, because home values in our number 7 city, where prices are going to drop this year, are over 35% overvalued compared to their long-term norms. This means that prices are likely to drop in Port St. Lucie this year. Now, here on Reventure App, we have a data point called overvalued percentage, and this shows you how much potential downside in your housing market there is. You can see in Port St. Lucie, values are 38% overpriced. That's one of the highest in America, and it's similar to the overvaluation in 05-06 before the last big crash. Because Port St. Lucie, along with many other cities on this list, got hit very hard in the last housing downturn from 2007 to 2012. Values in Port St. Lucie dropped 54% during that last crash. The value of a house went from $252,000 down to $113,000. People got wiped out. And so while some of these markets are going to be more attractive to buy in this year for you as a home buyer investor, you have to be careful that you're not buying into a heavily declining market where you're going to lose lots of value after the purchase. But there's already been a really big crash actually in our number 6 city. Values in our number 6 city have already dropped almost 20% from their peak in 2022, making this city the number 1 housing crash market so far in this downturn. Austin, Texas. You can see in Austin, values are down 19.1% from their peak in June 2022, from $548,000 to $443,000. These values also continue to drop, down minus 3.3% year over year, and they will likely drop by more in 2025 due to the fact that the inventory on Austin's housing market continues to grow well above its long-term norms. And this is causing absolutely crazy price and value reductions like on this house in Austin, everyone. It's a 4-bed, 3-bath, 2,100 square feet, currently listed for $360 grand or $171 a foot. Well, back in the middle of 2022, the Zillow value estimate on this house was $530,000, and it has since collapsed by nearly 35%, basically almost back to what it was prior to the pandemic. And a big problem in Austin, as well as some of the other cities on this list, are skyrocketing property taxes and insurance rates. The property taxes in Austin and many other parts of Texas are often over $10,000 per year for a house that's anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000 in price. Meanwhile, the insurance rates in Texas as well as in Florida are also starting to get really expensive. You can see, according to Bankrate, the states with the highest property insurance costs include Nebraska, Florida, Oklahoma, Kansas, Louisiana, and Texas, where annual insurance premiums average $4,000 to $5,600 a year. And these rates have increased by a lot. In a state like Florida, homeowners insurance rates have gone up anywhere from 60 to 80% over the last 3 years, now pricing many existing owners and future owners out of the market, which is now causing a big sell-off and reduced buyer demand. And before we get to our number 5 city where prices are going to drop in 2025, I want to issue a warning of sorts, and that's the fact that most of the cities on this list so far, in fact all of them, have been in either Texas or Florida. However, going forward, we're going to bring in some cities that are in different states because there's some other areas of America where the housing market is now in decline. There's other areas in America where prices are dropping and will drop in the future that I'm going to show you here in a second. But first, let's talk about another Florida city at number 5, Palm Bay, Melbourne. Palm Bay is located on the eastern coast of Florida and also includes Cape Canaveral, where the Kennedy Space Center is in its metro, and values in Palm Bay are down 1.9% over the last year. Now, you can see these prices went up by as much as 22% year over year in 2021. However, there's been a heavy deceleration since, and we're now officially in declining price territory already, a situation that's likely to continue in 2025 due to a combination of high supply, high price cuts, and high days on market from sellers across the Palm Bay housing market. You can see, for instance, that the for sale inventory in Palm Bay, according to data available on Reventure App, is up to over 4,000 homes on the market entering 2025. Only 3 years ago, at the peak of the pandemic, it was only 900 homes. So inventory is more than quadrupled to the highest level in 8 years, which is now pushing down prices and is causing Reventure App to forecast a downward price projection in 2025. And the way I actually came up with this list, everyone, was by looking at the home price forecast score available on Reventure App. This is a score ranked from 0 to 100 that tells you how much of a buyer's or seller's market your local housing market is. The closer the score is to 0, the more likely that prices are to drop. And if we zoom out and look at the home price forecast score across all the states in America, you can see the lowest scores, the areas in blue, are concentrated in the South as well as the mountain regions of America. These are the places that are going through a housing downturn right now, where prices are starting to drop and could drop by more into the future, particularly Texas and Florida, which have the 2 lowest scores of any state, which is why they have so many cities on this list. However, another state with a really low home price forecast score is Colorado. The home price forecast score on Reventure App has dropped from a 70 in early 2022 down to a 39 in early 2025, which is indicative of prices dropping anywhere from 3 to 5% over the next year. Particularly in our number 4 city on this list, Colorado Springs. Colorado Springs is a military town south of Denver where prices have dropped over the last 2.5 years. For instance, since the middle of 2022, prices in Colorado Springs are down 4.1%. The typical value has gone from $474 to $454. However, since about early 2023, values have kind of stayed stable, even gone up slightly. However, interestingly, most of this decline came in late 2022, early 2023, and since then, prices have stayed stable. However, prices aren't going to stay stable for that much longer because there is a massive wall of inventory hitting the Colorado Springs housing market as we speak. You can see that the homes for sale in Colorado Springs are now up to 2,300 in early 2025. That is by far the highest level of supply going back 8 years, and it's a massive 72% above the long-term average, with a similar situation occurring in our number 3 housing market where prices will drop in 2025, Denver, Colorado. In Denver, that inventory surplus is now 66%, with the number of homes for sale reaching 6,500 in early 2025, resulting in a really low Reventure App price forecast score of a 32 out of 100. Remember, below 50 indicates downward prices in the future. However, the issue in Denver's housing market is that values are just so expensive to begin with. For instance, if you want to buy a 4-bed, 3-bath home close to downtown Denver, you got to pay $995,000. Now, this price is only up 20% from what it was 5 years ago when it previously sold. However, your monthly payment on it is going to be close to $6,000 a month, when you'd be able to rent a similarly sized house for around $3,900 a month, meaning that it's about 40% cheaper to rent than to buy in Denver. And before getting to the top 2 cities on this list where I am forecasting prices are going to drop the most in 2025, I want to give you guys some data to substantiate the claims I'm making on this list, because I know a lot of you have been watching my channel for a long time, and a lot of you want to see prices drop in your area, and you want to understand that the data is there to support the notion that values are going to drop. And what I'm going to reveal to you now is some analysis I did in predicting prices actually last year in 2024. How did our score do in 2024 in terms of price prediction? Well, folks, it actually did really, really well. Our score predicted prices in 2024 with a correlation coefficient of 74% in large metro areas across America with a minimum population of 100,000. This means that our score in 2023 indicated where prices were going to go in 2024. The higher our score was in 2023, the more the prices went up in 2024. The lower our score was in 2023, the more the prices dropped in 2024. And as far as I know, this is the most accurate publicly available home price forecast that exists. So make sure after this video, after I do the top 2, to go to www.reventure.app and look at what that home price forecast is for your area in 2025. And you better be careful if you're a buyer in our number 2 city, because values here are already dropping and will continue to drop in 2025 due to a absolutely massive surge in supply occurring in Lakeland, Florida. You can see in Lakeland, everyone, which is in the center of Florida between Orlando and Tampa, there's now 4,900 homes on the market. These 4,900 homes are by far the highest level of supply in Lakeland's history, and they're about 71% above the long-term average. This high supply is now causing prices to officially drop in Lakeland. They're down by -1% over the last year. However, they could drop by a lot more into the future due to Lakeland being 26% overvalued in its housing market compared to its long-term norms. And that overvaluation rate, it's also a key metric that you should understand as a buyer and investor, because what that overvaluation rate tells you is that in the long run, is it more likely that prices are going to go up or down? And if prices are really overvalued today, that just makes future price growth less likely and future price declines more likely. Of course, that doesn't mean that prices are just going to imminently crash by 26% in Lakeland, but it does mean that you should be really selective and very careful as a buyer, especially now that prices are already dropping and are continued to forecast and are forecasted to continue to drop, with our number 1 area in America forecast to decline by the most in 2025 according to Reventure App being Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida. In Cape Coral, values are already down 5.6% over the last year. They crashed by 57% in the last downturn. They're about 20% overvalued still today, and the Reventure App price score is a 30 out of 100, one of the lowest in America. Head to www.reventure.app to see what this price forecast score is for your city and zip code. The closer it is to 0, the more likely prices are to drop.